Welcome back to FedBiz Exchange. I'm Michelle Brown, your coach and your mentor. Today, I want to talk to you about a very important challenge, an issue. First, I would like to invite you to join me live Friday at 1 p.m., May 17th, to learn more about helping our veterans by winning 5-year government housing contracts. Second, this video includes a never seen replay of my first homeless veterans training session I held back in March of 2024. Watch the rest of this video to prepare for Friday. We have homeless veterans that are waiting for people like us to find solutions to help them move on with their lives and have lives the same as some of us, the lives that they want to have. So in this video, I want to introduce you to the idea and the concept of learning more about how you can not only help your business grow, but while you're doing it, you're giving back to our veterans. If you don't know a lot about veterans, there's so many things that they need. And some of these opportunities that we're going to discuss today are included in not all of them. Some of them just need housing basic, that's it. But some of them need more than housing. So you will need to think about how you could support some of these requirements that are out there. And if you've never heard me say this before, the government needs us. We don't need them. We can go do business somewhere else. They need us more than we need them because they can't do these things. They can't figure these things out a lot of times, but they have the resources to help us do what we need to do. And they tell us what the need is. So all of these things, basic housing, it's also called transitional housing, counseling, but there are a lot of our veterans out here that they just don't have the support or the help. We don't understand them, so they need counseling. Sometimes you might see an opportunity where you could literally provide counseling, but maybe you never thought about the housing. Or maybe you could provide the housing, but you haven't thought about the counseling. This is where our business critical thinking skills, I call them, come into play. You may not be able to do it all, but you could do some of it, and maybe you could bring someone in, but you would be the prime. Okay. And you don't have to own homes to do this. You could lease the home based on winning the contract. There are a lot of things that we can do if we think through them, if we brainstorm, if we are creative and we're not thinking scarcity and being limited in what we can accomplish. Okay. So we have transitional housing services. That could be something like maybe it's temporary housing. They only need 10 beds for a certain amount of time, and then they just continue to use that same contract to replenish those beds with veterans. So maybe, they have a program where they want 10 beds only. These people just need somewhere to sleep. And then they're in a program, maybe they only need it for 20 weeks. I'm just throwing out examples. They only need it for 20 weeks because they're going through a training program. Maybe some of these veterans get Section 8 housing. So they could maybe get Section 8 housing, but they need somewhere for right now. And you guys know we have a homeless problem, period. And I get that. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand why we can't get control of this. But what I don't understand is how our veterans end up like this. There should be already transitioned for them when they get out of the military. I realize that things happen to them, but it's just not there. Drug rehab. There are a lot of them that have drug problems. And, the government does care about them. They just like they treat us, they treat the veterans the same way. Basically, they have all these programs for us. They do want us to win these contracts, but they don't teach us how to do it. I mean, they hire resources supposedly to teach us how to do it, but we know they don't work. That's the problem right there. But in this case, they do have all of these opportunities for them. They do want to take care of them. They are just not able to create sustainable systems that are automatic and set up to accommodate when these people either get out of the military. Sometimes they get out of the military and their families have fallen apart because maybe they were in the middle of a war and they just are not functional and their families don't know what to do with them or how to help them. And the services are also all fragmented, even the healthcare. So, but it's there. I remember when Obama went in and, people don't realize he did this because he never took credit for a lot of the things that he did. Trump didn't do this, but Obama did this. He signed, and Trump also approved it for another 4 years. But Obama had to go in because healthcare was so bad for them, not the care itself, but the process for them getting in to see a doctor. He expanded the network. They created the network. And he had that for, his time in office because it was so embarrassing. In Arizona, we had the same situation, very embarrassing, where you had to wait as a veteran 30, 45, 60 days to get in for an appointment. And part of the problem is they hired this large contracting organization that handles all other healthcare, and they made a mess of it. And I know this for a fact because of some of the services that my company provided to help doctors. My services help the doctors get some of these veterans so that those veterans could come to those doctors' offices. That's what Obama did. He created a network, whereas if you were a doctor, but you were not in the veterans healthcare system, you could go through a certification process, which is what I taught the doctors to do. I created a program for them to go through the certification process so that they could start seeing these veterans. This is what I'm talking about. We have to think of things to help, even if it's not connected directly to the veterans. Why did I create that program? Because I knew the system was broken. So what I did was I started creating a program that would allow the doctors, all different types of doctors, acupuncture physicians, medical doctors. I created that program very much like I do for you guys, where those doctors could walk through the process, talk to the Veterans Administration or whoever the point contact was, sign up through the paperwork, make sure they had all their licenses together, and the next thing you know, they're serving doctors. They're serving veterans. And some of them were doing extremely well and still are. It's gotten so busy, and I'd like to think that I was part of helping that to happen. It got so busy with those doctors getting in there that now there's a waiting list because doctors don't know how to make money either, quite frankly. They think just because they're a doctor, somebody's going to come. It's not like that anymore. So I was really proud to do something like that, but it was very frustrating when I found out what was happening. And you could do the same thing. You could think of and learn, how do I take what I do and help these veterans? What if you do education and training? I've had veterans to write to me, and you guys know my work life is so busy but I'm going to do it. I just haven't had the space yet to do that specifically, but write to me and say, can you come to this organization? It's all veterans. I have a lot of veterans in the program. And the reason and this was not someone who was already in the program. This was someone trying to get into the program telling me, we need you to teach us how to do this business, these contracts. And I know that that's true. I just need to find the space to be able to do it. But training and education, all kinds of training, resume training, interview training, all kinds of training. So if you have a skill set that could help a veteran get a very good job, you should be using it. Maybe you don't want to do the housing part, but maybe you want to contact some of the organizations that do the housing part. Because in that housing, they could require training, employee or employer training or employee training. They could have situations where maybe the person that has the 5-year housing contract cannot bring in the counseling because they don't know any counselors or they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to bring people together. The transitional services, finding housing. So just have your mind open when you think about what I'm going to share with you today, okay? So there are only 3 things that it takes to win. And one of them is, we're going to talk about some of this one in more detail today. Some of that is clearly understanding the needs and the requirements. What do I mean by that? It just means reading the scope of work. It means understanding what is required. Is this one for me? Maybe you only want to do the transitional 10 bed or 20 bed or 100 bed thing. Maybe that's all you want to do. Or maybe you want to do the transitional housing that includes the counseling, which may also include some medical services. Some of you have the ability to do that. You're not afraid of that. You don't have to do it yourself, but you bring in other subcontractors or other relationships to do that, or you hire them, you contract them. Let's say the housing needed one nurse. You could contract a nurse. That person would be considered a subcontractor, but they're a contractor. Now, you are responsible for the performance of the situation because they will tell you that in the requirements. You need to understand, these are the things you're responsible for. So even if you hire someone, you are still responsible for the performance. So, from a business model perspective, number two, you have to think about, do I want to manage these other services? Do I want to be responsible for these people? Or do I just want to find a smaller 5-year contract that doesn't require a lot? Maybe I just need a nurse and a doctor, and that's all I need. So you need to look through these. Once I share these with you, you need to think about your capacity. One thing that I have learned to do very well as an entrepreneur is understand. I know myself very well anyway. I know what I like doing, what I don't like doing. I only do things that I have a passion for. And I tell everybody the same thing, meaning, and if I don't have that passion, I can feel that I could have a passion for something. And some of you have a passion for helping people, period, the end. So you're going to find a way. When you have a passion for something, you find a way. So, you need to think about, what does that business model look like? And you need to have an open mind. I tell people, don't think about money right away. Because when we do that, our minds shut down and say, even if I have it, I don't know if I want to put all that money into this situation. Some of these situations you may not have to put that much money into. But those are the questions you have to ask yourself. That's part of your business model. Okay. And then number three, this is what I do. I teach you guys how to do when you find something that you like, is how to submit the package. You make one package for yourself, and that's your template. That's how it works. You always need to think like that. You create a process that works, and you continue to use that process. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, there are a lot of sources sought out here that are going to turn into pre-solicitations, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Even since I did that short video, the reason that's happening is because we don't have no competition. We don't, and I hate that word. You guys know I hate that word. I hate when I use that word even. There are no other contractors out there. No one is trying to solve this problem. And the ones that are, they might be overwhelmed. Maybe they got 10 houses already and they can't handle anymore. I know this will be here when I retire. I know that we will still need help in this area, but it's just one of those areas that really breaks my heart. And I know there's some of you out there that are willing to do this, and it may help you as much as it helps the veterans. You're not helping the government, you're helping the veterans, our veterans that take care of us. Okay, I have 2 questions. So it is absolutely possible to do this as a nonprofit. A lot of organizations do. A lot of organizations do it as a nonprofit. It's also, I am looking into a lot of the different grants for some of the things that I want, my proteges to focus on, the people that are in the community with me. And, in some cases, I haven't seen any, but that's because I haven't looked yet. There may even be some grants for, I'll tell you this. Well, let me back up and say this. California actually has like a program that where they pay for veterans locally, and because they're state, they give money on a state level, but not just veterans. They do it with seniors. Some of the other states may have that too. But what I was going to say at first is, it would be a good idea for people to start researching whether or not they have grants for veteran housing, where especially if you're a nonprofit. But sometimes, like with government contracting, you can be a nonprofit and win a government contract too. But now some contracts do require you to be for profit. But absolutely, you can be a nonprofit, which is how a lot of the veteran agencies do it. If you look up some of these veteran agencies, they may not even be doing federal. They might just be doing state, local things. Because a lot of businesses don't know how to do federal contracting. That's why it's easier for us to win at a federal level. There's not a lot of nepotism going on, favoritism, things like that. The government is so humongous, they just need help. So yes, Candace. Hi, Candace. Yes, you can do that as a nonprofit. And then, no, you don't need to be, well, that's an excellent question too. Both of these are good questions. You do not need to be a veteran to do this. No, that's the problem. The government is trying to find certified veterans to do this, but they can't find them. So they have to open it up. One of the things you guys need to understand about sources sought, some of you may know pieces of this, but I still think people don't get this. When you see sources sought out there, that is an opportunity for you to show up. But a lot of people don't want to do that pre-work. They're waiting for the solicitation, but it helps for you to be one of the first to show up. Sometimes you will get personally invited. Can you bid on this? Because we need people like you. They may not say that, but the fact that it is a sources sought means that they cannot find other veterans to do this because veterans don't know how. They're not business people. They don't come out business people. A lot of our military people, a lot of our people that work in the government, even when you think about SBA and all of these, they don't know how to do business. Most of them, I would say probably 99% of them. If there's 1% that understands something about business, we don't see them that often. So that's why you are going to see all of these opportunities sitting out there. And they start with sources sought because they want woman owned. They want minority owned. They want veteran owned, but they're not seeing us. That's the problem. And they can't set aside if they don't see us. So if 3 of you were to respond to a source's thoughts and you're all women, they would say, we got some women-owned business out here. We can set these aside for women. Now, a lot of you guys may not realize this, you have to have the right codes. We'd have to look and see, which I believe real estate is attached to the WSB codes. So you might have to add a couple of codes to your SAM. But if they see 3 of us women, they could set it aside and we could ask them to. Could you consider setting this aside as a WSB? What does that do? That segments the situation to a smaller group, even though it's going to end up being a smaller group anyway. When I say smaller group, I mean small business. Small business is supposed to get 7% of the contracts in this country. So that used to be about 92 billion. It's probably over 100 billion now because we're not spending 400 billion anymore. Since COVID, we are spending 600 billion and more. So the set asides, that means small businesses, if they don't see a special group, they'll just try to set it aside as a small business. But what happens is when they set it aside as an 8A, as a woman owned, as a veteran owned, as there's no certification for minorities specifically, but if you are Hispanic, Asian, Black, or maybe a couple of other groups, that's considered minority owned, which they do get to check other boxes for that. But that's why I'm doing this, because if they see some of you, they'll set aside, which eliminates a lot of the big boys. There are some organizations that this is all they do, but they don't, not a lot though, because if they were out there, the government would not have all these sources sought. When you see sources sought, it means they can't find nobody, or they're trying to set aside for smaller groups. They don't like dealing with the larger companies any more than we do, because they know they get taken advantage of. Okay, I see your question. Okay. Do you need to have or build a team for these contracts? I would say, Emily, it depends on the type of contract it is. If it's just for beds, no, you don't need a team. But if you are looking at some of the other ones we're getting ready to go into right now, I'm going to pause my screen for a minute. If you're looking at, for instance, a situation where they need other services like I described on the previous page, you might need to build a team. But that team doesn't mean that these people need to necessarily be part of your business. It would be, for instance, like I don't know if you came in a little bit later, but like I said, if the team would be, for instance, medical services, but not serious medical services, you just needed a nurse. That would be one entity that's part of your team. Maybe you need training services. You might work with an outside organization to get those training services. Maybe you partner with a veteran-owned company. Maybe you partner with a training company that has worked with veterans before. So they could be your team. Maybe the government wants them to transition into their own housing. So you find a realtor or someone to work with. That's the team. They don't have to work for you as an employee. These are contract people, but you have to manage them. So you need to be prepared to keep up with what they're doing. So if the government says we need these people to be in transitional housing within 20 weeks, you're working with a realtor that needs to be meeting with you and discussing how they're making that happen. You don't do the work, they do the work. I'm a big component or big advocate, I should say, of leadership. You got to have your leadership skills together. That I would say that's the biggest thing. Meaning you have to be able to tell people what to do and be very, very strict and structured about things like this, because they will mess up your performance, meaning you're going to have performance requirements. And some of you have businesses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to have it together. So, I would teach people how to make sure they have their process together. It's not about money. It's not about just the people that you need. It's about your business model, how you plan for things to work. And those things will be based on the requirements of the contract. That's how we do it in my manufacturing. I mean, I do it like that in my regular government contract. So that's all you would need is you could use other people to do these things. Having these relationships would be great to you building that team as an extension to your own business. And that way you could duplicate. You got a good realtor that seems motivated. He or she goes out to find the houses for you. They know what the schedule is. They know how many people they have to find housing for in this amount of time. They have to be out of your facility or your home and move to the next place within this amount of time. So that realtor, that's their job. That nurse, what's his or her responsibilities? To make sure that everyone in that facility is okay. So what does that mean? Well, it depends on what the requirements say. It is all about just having a structure and having people do what they're supposed to do, and you be the management authority and the leader of getting these things done. That's how you duplicate these efforts. So it can be a lot of work if you don't know what you're doing, in the sense of being a leader. You're not working on your leadership skills. As entrepreneurs, we should always, I think I'm a pretty decent leader, but I'm always working on my skills, thinking about, what could I be doing different, or and I know when I'm holding up the train too, meaning I know my weaknesses. So, if I have a weakness in a certain area, I have to develop myself to let that go and let someone else do it, because I'm just being a controlling boss. And I don't want to be that way. So it's the same here. This can look big, and it is big. It is. I'm not going to say that it's not, but what I'm going to say is we have to think outside of where we are. We have to start thinking. This is why what I said earlier, less than 1% of us are winning these contracts, not just these, all of them across the board. Again, I was shocked. I didn't know it was that bad. I knew it was small for small businesses to win anyway. but this is bad. It made me feel like I need to be out there more, training more, because I know I create winners. I don't know what I know there are a lot of minority owned businesses in there, a lot of, Black community business owners that are starting to get in, but and women, I've been telling women for years since the WOSB, the reason that y'all don't see no set asides is because you're not out there bidding. You're not out, and that is all women across the board. You're not out there learning how to do this. You think just because you have that certification, you're going to win something? It doesn't work like that, not anymore. Maybe it used to with the 8A, but not anymore. You got to get out there and you will be seen because you're probably one of the only ones because people don't know how to do the things that I talk to you guys about. Okay. Yes, Emily, that's right. Delegate. And you know what, Emily, this is a good point because then you stop being so overwhelmed by what you see. I mean, when you look at the requirements, you're thinking, oh my God, that's a whole list. But it's not really that bad because what you have to say to yourself is, I just need to create a business model that works where I'm being the lead, I'm the senior management person, leader in charge, and all I got to do is make sure these things get done. And one of my models is it has been, and you hire good people slowly, you get people involved slowly, you get to know the person. You don't just hire any realtor. You have standards for that realtor that you hire. You tell them what you need in the beginning. So my motto has always been, I don't really like to do a lot of staffing and interviewing. I mean, I'll do it if I have to, but now if the person's going to be close to me, I do. I want to get to know that person. I want to hire for that person. But the staff that's not working close to me, I will let the other people, their bosses, do their interview. But when people are not performing or you feel like they're not really giving you the whole story, you get rid of them. I mean, if they are not helping you as a leader, I don't want anybody around me that's not helping me think. I got too much stuff to think about. And so will you under this. I have to think up here from a visionary perspective. I need the experts. If you're an expert nurse and here's your list, I expect you to tell me what you should be doing. And then I say, okay, well, that's what I expect you to do. If if you have the experience of helping veterans get jobs, and the government told me you need to have somebody in this program to help them get these jobs, I expect that person to come in and tell me, how are you going to help these people find jobs? What's your strategy? When somebody doesn't tell me that right away, I don't talk to them anymore. I'm like, that's not going to work. I just don't have patience for that because I'm on a timeline for everything. And when it comes to government things, I'm even like that with my manufacturing people. Okay, stop telling me what's not going to work and just tell me what's going to work. That's how we need to think as entrepreneurs and leaders, always, always, because there's always going to be a problem. So, okay, so let me go take you guys over to Sam. Give me just a second. I had them open already. I'm going to switch over to the screen where I am, make sure you guys can see where I am. Here's Sam. Yeah, there are a lot out there, even from just last week when I did uh, the video, and that's exactly my point. The thing that concerns me even more is, sorry about that, you guys, is that there are a lot of sources, soughts, and pre-solicitations. And that concerns me because it says to me the number of homeless veterans is growing. And, it is a new fiscal year, but we're in the second quarter, which is good. And they do start spending a whole lot more in the second, third, and fourth quarter. But it's concerning me because that means we have a lot of veterans that are homeless out there all over the country. And we have the same problem, by the way, with the senior homes. You guys know, I need to get back into that again, that we have some people doing it, but still not enough. Still not enough. Okay, so here is I want to make this a whole screen. Give me just a second. I will make this a full screen. So let me let's go back because I want you guys looking around after this class is over. I'm going to go back to the home page. I want to show you how I got here. I know I showed you in the video, but I want to show you again. So you go to SAM.gov, you will click on contract opportunities. I would suggest that you log in just so that if you see something that you like, you don't have to come back. So I clicked on contract opportunities and I always click on advanced search. Then I start with keywords. What is one of my main keywords is homeless. And the reason I do that is because it's not just veterans that are homeless. Sometimes they need help with homeless youth programs or homeless drug abusers that are not veterans or transitional housing. You could literally find a lot of opportunities, not just for veterans, but transitional housing, homelessness in general. Okay. And if it's on here, that means the government is trying to pay for it. They're trying to find a place to put these people to help them be safe. So I use my keywords. Now, if you remember in the video, if you watch the video, I said you need to make sure you're getting these codes. G004 is one of our main codes for transitional housing, homelessness, period. G004, and you can always add these later if you don't have these in your SAM, which you probably don't. So that's one of them. This is they might be asking someone to build a facility just for, look at this is for mental health, but it showed up under homelessness probably because once this facility is built, they're going to put certain homeless people in this facility. Also, you have, here's an example, National TA Center for Homeless Education. These are all sources sought, which is very unusual and a little bit scary because it just means they don't have enough help in this area. And then you also have the G099. These are your PSC codes I'm telling you about, okay? Because this is how you find the best opportunities. If you're really interested in this, this should be one of your search areas. You should be following some of these. Like, look at this one, homeless veteran, transitional housing services for Greater Los Angeles. Now, we know Los Angeles is expensive, but guess what? They know that too. These are, in these situations, I don't think about money unless I have to think about, okay, where am I going to get the money from to do these things? Yes, I would think about that, but I would not think about, okay, how much is it going to cost for me to lease a house in Los Angeles because I don't want to buy one. I wouldn't worry about that because I charge the government and I'd put my profit on top of that. That's what you're supposed to do. So I wouldn't think about that. What I would be doing in Los Angeles, if I were interested in this opportunity, is I would, because it's a sources sought, and it's more than one, quite frankly. Look at this. They have two different ones. They might have different requirements, but they're both for veterans and they are sources sought. They would do a sources sought today, but if I were you and I were interested in this, I would still fill the sources sought out. By the way, we're going to go through a sources sought in full completion and I would submit it. Sources sought, you can submit late. Sometimes they will tell you, very rare, if you don't submit this on time, we won't consider that you've submitted it. But yes, they will. They might not change it as a set aside, but you could still bid on it. So, but a lot of people don't answer these because people are lazy. You can't be lazy trying to get business like this. This is when you have 2 or 3 of these, you're on your way to basically being set, provided you price them correctly so that you're making, you might say, well, I want to make a couple $100,000 a year off of each contract. Then I mean, that's very easy to build millions of dollars a year fairly quickly. And how do you get started with planting these seeds? I call it planting seeds because it's showing up. If I were wanting to do something in Los Angeles, I would do both of these. These are 2 different contracts. I would submit to both of these. You create a sources sought template and you use it over and over and over again. Okay, here's another one that's G099. This is another sources sought. I'm just really surprised. This is just crazy. I think even since I've been in there yesterday, this is unbelievable. Now, California is the one that they also have a local program. How do I know? I know because I talk to people that do like senior services and things like that. Some of them are my proteges, and they tell me, well, Michelle, I'm now getting money because I take care of a senior who's a veteran. Now, they won't let all of the veterans go to any old type of what do I want to call it? Like senior home, like a senior citizen home. Some of the veterans, if they're seniors, they have to be qualified for a certain type of housing. But depending on what their situation is, like if they need health care, they might be allowed to go into a certain type of housing program to get that health care, that daily assistance. Okay. But so California is a place to be looked into. And California, they have a lot of their own challenges, but the government knows they're going to have to pay probably more than they did years ago. That's just the way it is. I think people use problems as an excuse like inflation. People kill me with this inflation thing. Oh, everything's are going up because of inflation. It was just like COVID. People made excuses and blamed everything on COVID. I don't worry about those things. I just do what I need to do and I charge what I think I need to charge, based on, because you do want to make a profit. It is, yes, it's great work. You're doing something to help, but you also need to be taken care of so that you can grow your business and do more of this. The government does not want you struggling doing this because they know you won't come back. You're going to be complaining at how hard it is and you didn't make enough money. So that's what I mean by a business model. Then here we are in Washington, D.C. Look at this one. Housing specialist. I don't know what that means, but we would have to go in there. And this one is actually a solicitation. Okay, so this one is in DC. What else? But again, G004. So I want you to notice these codes because when you put the codes in, you're going to get exactly what you're looking for. I think PSC codes are a better search tool than NACE codes. You do need to know the NACE codes too, because you would put them in your SAM. But these two, as an example, and I believe I've said this to you guys before, could have the same PSC code and different NACE codes. Because the contracting officer can choose whatever NACE code he thinks is best. But when it comes to the PSC codes, those are government codes and they have to use specific codes to identify specific products and services. So the codes that you see are the right codes. And if you don't know your right codes, you're not going to find the opportunities. And the way that you win is to show up consistently. Show up under these sources SOTs, answer them, even if it's late. You just send them a message, let them know, I know this is late, but I'm very interested in this. Please keep me posted. They might say, well, it'll be on SAM. But sometimes they will take those sources SOTs if they only have a couple and send you a special invite because you got noticed. Okay. Case management for homelessness. See all of the things I was talking about. Now, case management, social work, that could be counseling, that could be not just counseling, but also other things. Sometimes you have to provide food. Okay, here's another one. Homeless Counseling Center, succeeding lease. I think I included this one in the video. That could mean maybe the lease for this service center is coming up. Maybe they're terminating the contract with the company that they are working with. That could mean anything. You'd have to look at the details. Okay, so now one of the things that you might be wondering is, well, how do I know about pricing? We'll talk about that, a little bit, but you would know about pricing by, this is a trick that I do, and it doesn't always work exactly, but it's similar. Okay, so sometimes I might not be, this is an award, right? So I could click on this. I'm just going to show you this before we go into how to actually complete one of these sources SOTs, but I'm going to click on this just to show you something. So you come in here and you see what the award was for. Oh, they didn't even post the amount. Sometimes they post the amount in here. Let me see if it's down. Oh, it might be in the document. Let me see if it's in the document before I show it to you guys. It might be in the document. Hold on a second. I'll reshare my screen in just a second. I want to see if the award amount is in the document. Because what I do sometimes is I will look for an award. No, they're not showing the award amount. That's interesting. We could look it up though. We could look it up, but they're not showing the award amount per se. Let me go back to where we were with, let me make sure I have the screen in the right place. Okay, so this one does not really do what I wanted it to do. Sometimes the award amount is right.
I think it's in the description, Michelle. It's
You
that
see it? You saw it?
that 2 million.
Oh, that's it. Thank you, Robin. Yep, so it's 2 million for the 5-year contract. Now, we don't know exactly what they wanted to be done in this contract for 2 million. What you would do is if you were looking for, let's say you saw another one, social rehabilitation, you have to try to match it up to what you're seeing. I would go back to SAM out here and I would put in the same exact title and then click on inactive to see if I can bring up any similar contracts. Now, they might be in a different state, which would matter because one state is going to be more expensive than another, but it could be also that somebody's 5-year contract is up. One of the things that I would do also is I would make sure that I just run a report with these codes. So let's say you like transitional housing, I would run a report in USA Spending with G004 just to look at some of the award amounts. And most of these are going to be 5 years because you can't get much done in a year, meaning the government can't get much done. So it's going to be 5 years in most of these cases. So there are ways for you to find that, but I would find the old solicitations and match up the awards. That's what I would do. That way you could see or get a general idea. And again, the locations may be different, but you still need to get a feel for, like we just saw that one. Robin found it for me. So $2 million for 5 years. I don't know. That sounds like a little small to me. $2 million for 5 years. I don't know. I would have to make sure that I understand what that is asking me to do. Now, and if that doesn't fit my business model, then I would choose something different, something closer to my business model. But that was an award for, if I remember correctly, let me go down here, for social. I think it was for social services or something like that. Where was that? No, it wasn't that one. Oh, was it? It was this one down here, I think. I don't know, but I would just make sure, because I lost my place, it's so many in here. I would just make sure that you, let's say you know something like that is $2 million. Maybe that matches what you're interested in. You know that they awarded something for $2 million over a 5-year contract. You need to find first, before you even look at other pricing, you need to find the original solicitation to that specific contract. And how do you do that? You do just what I said. You would take the title. If you can't find the actual solicitation number, sometimes it's in here, but a lot of times it's not. You need to take that actual solicitation number and you put it back in here and you choose this, the inactive, and you can usually find the award and the solicitation. And then you can look and see what the scope of work was for that award. Okay, I have some questions and then we'll move into actually doing the sources saws. So let me go make sure. Okay, so Emily is asking, what did I search to bring up transitional housing? I just put in homeless so that I could encompass a lot of the homeless contracts out there. I love keywords. They just do so much better to me. And then I find the PSC codes and then I start using the PSC codes. You always want to search one thing at a time or like, so let's do that. So let me, before I go into anything, because you could pull up different contracts under keywords than you do under using the actual PSC code. So let's just do that. I'm going to use I'm going to take out homeless. I will use G004. Let me see, under product service codes, G004, and it's under social rehabilitation. And let's see what I get. I should get a lot of the same things. No, here's a new one. The award for this type of project came up. This was a 5-bed situation, but most of the same ones came up. This transitional housing one still came up. That's not due as a source is sought until the 25th, the 27th. This one wasn't here. This is a source is sought. So you see how when you do different things, you can get different results, but you want to make sure you're searching all the right ways. It only takes you a few minutes. That's why you need to know what your codes are. I look every day for opportunities for my different businesses. And I use different codes, but I do the same thing, but it doesn't take me that long. It only takes me like a few minutes. And I don't have somebody else look, I look because I want to know, so I look for myself. Even if I were to have someone else look, I still look because, things pop up like out of the blue. Sometimes I've seen situations where I would say to myself, now I know that wasn't there this morning. Where did that come from? It might be a solicitation they just put out there. Okay, so what else? Same thing. Oh, I think this one was already there too. Now, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. If you want something simple, which this is the one we're going to look at. If you want something simple just for transitional housing and nothing else, or maybe they might ask for some food, for you to provide food. This is a simple one, okay? But this is a sources sought. It's due on the 28th. We're going to go through that one. This one was not here when I pulled up G004. It's there now, but it wasn't there when I just put in homeless because it's also not just probably homeless. This is community treatment. This could be good for a medical organization, medical staffing or something like that. That's for the Bureau of Prisons. And then this was not here. This one for transitional housing within the area of Columbus, Georgia. That one was not here. So you guys get the message. You see what this one was not here. Day reporting center services located in Texas. Some of these reporting services, they probably have a difficult time managing who's where. Because think about it, you got to have a reporting system. Somebody's got to track this activity in different places. What is this? This is an award notice. This is another program that comes up a lot. The reentry services for, I think this is for people getting out of prison. That's another big one. Now, they don't give them that much. Sometimes they just want you to give them a place to live. That's also big business in government contracting as well. So you're going to see a lot of things come up for different types of situations that could fit into this homelessness or transitional housing situation. And then what else? Here's another one. Or is that the same one? No? Yes, the same one. Okay. Housing specialist, we saw that one for DC, homeless veterans. Okay, so you guys get the message. You see what I mean? But you should literally go through these and evaluate what you see. I always copy the link because some of these disappear. They're not expired or anything like that, but sometimes I think it's a glitch in their system. Sometimes they disappear. And if you don't get it before it disappears, even if you are ready, or I should say, if you're not ready, then you need to get it and save it, like download the opportunity, because you're not going to be able to find it again sometimes unless you go into archive. If you remember what it said, but sometimes if you just say, I'll come back and look at it later. I don't do that anymore because I come back to look for it and it's not there. So at minimum, what I do is I highlight this link, and you guys know I encourage you to use a bid tracking sheet, and I right click it and I click copy, not copy link address. I click copy, period. And then I just put it on my spreadsheet and it's there. And when I do my daily review of what I want to focus on, because I didn't have time to go inside of here and do all of the research, I just put it on my spreadsheet and I come back and I look at it. And then I put the dates of things that are when it's due or whether it's a sources sought. I look to see what it is at that time. If it's something that's due urgently, I might go ahead and say, I need to open this up and see what the details are. Maybe it's a solicitation, or maybe it's a pre-solicitation that I really want. I might go ahead and go into it, but I still copy it and put it on my link. Okay. I have another question. The one I was looking at for homeless blankets, that's an interesting area. Yeah, that's a product. That would be a product. And that would be something that has to be made, but that's a good one. Some of you may just want to do products to help with veteran stuff. I'm not saying there are a lot of products that are out here specifically for veterans, but there are a lot of products out here with the Veterans Administration. That's all they do is products. That's all I do with the Veterans Administration is products right now. I mean, that's how I started my government contracting. So there are a lot of products that you will see. Now, what's interesting is you mentioned the blankets. I don't know if it's on this list. I don't remember what the code was for those blankets. But yeah, that's a very good point. If you saw something like that, and I would say that it's not a coincidence that you would see that under this category of homelessness, because it is about homeless. So, sometimes they might have food for homeless veterans. And maybe because I put in that key word, homeless, that's how that blanket came up. Okay, so let's do this one. I want to do the one specific to the 10 beds. Let me make sure you guys are still seeing where I am. Yes, you are. So let's go through what this document, the requirements is saying that we have to do and that we have to know. So the first thing I want to do is pay attention to when this is due. The original response date is going to be the 28th. We know that this is the Veterans Administration. You will or should acknowledge that most of the activity with contracts like this will be through the Veterans Administration. So the Veterans Administration is big, but I feel like the contracting officer groups are small, meaning one of the things that I learned early on, just by teaching and developing other businesses and doing contracting myself, I realized these contracting officer groups are small. And it means that that's the way for them to get to know you. They have to look at your package that you submit. They do not have to look at, I mean, I shouldn't say they don't have to look at it. They should be looking at when you send them an email with your capability statement, but they don't. The only thing that these contracting officers pay attention to, and I get it, I don't blame them. This is just the reality. Even though they're supposed to acknowledge every email, it's called vendor communication. It's a law, but they don't do it. But if you respond to a source's thoughts, they do it. If you respond to something that they need, they do it because they only have so much time in a day. It's unrealistic. They have people marketing to them all the time, and that's stupid. I try to tell people, do not just send out a bunch of emails. It doesn't work anymore. Maybe it used to work a long time ago. It doesn't. If you want to get in front of a contracting officer, respond to them. They're asking for something. That's all they care about at the moment. They don't care about nothing else because they don't have time for anything else. So if you want them to know you, that's why you respond to all of these sources sought. And it's not going to be that much or that hard because you're going to create a template and you're going to just change certain information and submit it. And you're going to mostly use the same information over and over and over again because it's a type of contract that you're going after. And no matter which contracting officer it is, they probably work together. They ask about companies. It happened to me. And that's when I realized I knew I was right. Because if you're seeing the same contracting officers over and over again, let's say California has a lot of activity that we saw. There's probably a group of contracting officers, 3 or 4 of them, maybe only 2, that are looking at the California deals. And they're going to ask each other, have you ever worked with this company before? Do you know them? That's not the point. The point is that they are recognizing you because maybe your package looks good. Those things matter. Okay, so we know this is the Veterans Administration. The response is due by the 28th of this month. And we know what the codes are. So the code is the G004. But look, this temporary shelter code is the NACE code for this specific one. But I could look at another one just like this, and this PSC code could be the same, but the NACE code is different. So you want to write these down because you need to put these in your SAM. If you're not following the right codes, you're not going to find the right opportunities. Even if this NACE code is wrong, it's not wrong. But even if it were, you still put it in your SAM. You know why? Because this contracting officer or this department, that's the code they use. You use the codes your buyers use, the contracting officers. That's it. That way you find everything that they're doing. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'll give you guys a second to just look through it, and I'll look through it too. But the reason that you want to read as much as you can on this page when you're doing these is because they may make the decision for you. Sometimes you may see things like this right here. This catches my eye. This whole case management thing about providing case management services and access to medical, mental health, and rehabilitation services. Now, this is a big one, but it looks easy. That's why I picked it. I'm seeing this for the first time like you guys are because I wanted to do this live. But this is a big one. So we talked about partnerships. You'd have to have, for instance, a case management person. Now, that person, you could contract that person, but you could also hire that person to work with you consistently, directly, not just for this case, but I mean, in the beginning, I always tell people, don't be so quick to hire people on a W-2 level. Contract with people first to see if they work out. Because I believe, me personally, that in businesses, in our bigger businesses, sometimes we hire these people and they just eat up our money in payroll taxes. You don't have payroll taxes for contractors. Your profit will be eaten up that way until you feel that this person is who you want to keep. And sometimes these people don't even care to be employees anyway. This is what I call a gig economy. Even there are case managers out there that have their healthcare, their professional nurses, nurse practitioners, they have case management experience. They don't want to be an employee. Maybe they have their own business and they provide case management services, things like that. So this person you could just contract out. And that way they have experience, they're used to doing this. You don't have to give them as much guidance. You just manage them, period, based on what the requirements are. And then the medical and mental health. Those are also areas where you can contract these people. You can contract the rehabilitative services. Now, when it says rehabilitative services, that could include various things. We'll see when we go inside the scope of work, but that could include a lot of things. So the question is, do I go out and find a rehabilitative service that already has various types of rehabilitation services, or do I just find a person or two? Depends on which one is best for your model, depends on which one is cheaper. For instance, if you have an occupational health therapist that you need to hire, but you also need to hire a physical therapist, because that's sometimes, I mean, those are lighter situations, but rehabilitative could mean a range of things. But let's just use those two as an example. Would you just go and hire a facility that has those services? Because I know I've had clients that they have both. They have occupational therapists, they have physical therapists, and you could just go to them and say, can you provide these services to my agency? Maybe I have 3 houses and I want to use this service. But what if I only have 1 house? This is my first house and I want to keep my costs down. Because when you're dealing with a company as opposed to a person, most of the time you're going to pay a little bit more. So if you feel that the rehabilitative services hiring a company to do this might be more expensive, and I say if because I don't know. If that might be more expensive, then you want to consider separating the processes and hiring a professional in occupational health and a professional in physical therapy. So they're two different types of therapists. You might want to hire them individually because you would probably pay them by the hour as opposed to the company maybe tacking on their markup. Okay, so just a thought. This may turn out to be much bigger than what I expected just by the title. Sounds like it is. So that was the one thing that caught my eye. So even though it says, I thought it said like the 10 bids. Okay, so I'm just going to go up and down here, but I would read this before I even go into the actual scope of work, the requirements or performance of work. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. Now, just so you know, let's say before I go into the document, let me show you something here. You need to follow these. If you like these, you need to follow these. If you click on it, it'll make you log in, and then you can do your search, more searches from there. But you need to follow ones that you like, especially if you only have time to copy and paste the link and put it on your bid tracking sheet. You want to copy it, but yet you still want to follow, because every time something changes, like when the solicitation comes out or when the pre-solicitation comes out, you want to be notified. Now, down here, just before we go, I want to show you that down here, they have a list of the actions they've taken. So let's say you come back in here and when you first started with this, it was only sources sought. Sometimes if you get confused about what the updates are, you can come all the way down here and it will show you that it has gone to the next level of pre-solicitation. And I know if you guys have been listening to me for a while, you know the process, you know the steps. It starts out as a sources sought. Next thing you know, it turns into a pre-solicitation. All this time, you have time to get ready. You have time to get ready. It turns into a pre-solicitation. Sometimes that takes another 15 to 30 days. Sometimes not as long. It could be anywhere from maybe 10 days for them to post it. Sometimes they tell you when they're going to post it and they still don't post it. It still ends up taking another 10 days. But you should be in the position of getting ready so that when the solicitation comes out, you can bid on the solicitation. You'll have your business model together already. Okay, let me answer this question and then we'll go to inside to the scope of work. Do all contracts have to have a capability statement? No, I know we're all in different places when it comes to your knowledge of government contracting. Emily, not everybody has to have a capability statement, even though you should have one. But capability statements are part of your branding package. I would say, as a perfect example of what we're doing right now, a capability statement should go in here. It's a sources sought. Capability statement does not have to go into a solicitation. But a capability statement is a quick one-shot overview of your company and what you can do. And sometimes you should have different capability statements for different things. But you don't win with the capability statement, and you don't have to have one. You could fill this out without having one, but you need one for your branding package. And capability statements, generally speaking, they are very popular with government, but they work anywhere, commercial, state government. It's just a snapshot of your business, very succinct snapshot with your NACE codes, your PSC codes, descriptions of services that you can offer, and then maybe some past performance. It's just very neatly put together all on one page. And yes, I do suggest, if you have one ready, when you respond to a sources sought, yes, I do think you should submit one, but you don't have to have one. You could still submit if you don't have one. And you don't need it for your solicitation unless you just want to add it as an added value. And do I do that sometimes? Yes, I do. But do I send out capability statements like some people tell you to do? No, I don't. It's stupid and it doesn't work. Nobody wants to be opening your emails we have to market to these people different. They're just different. It's a different market. It's not like commercial. Okay, they respond to what they need at the time. Okay, so now I'm going to go into I'll pause the screen. I'm going to go into the sources sought description. I'll download it. We'll review that right here. And we're going to walk through the sources, thoughts, and what you need to do. Okay, so you should see on your screen where it says this is not a solicitation announcement. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. But what we're going to do is go down to the performance requirements. And you guys can read on your own, but I'll just read some things from a highlight perspective. The contractor shall provide beds and furnish services to beneficiaries of the VA. This is obviously a Pennsylvania contract, Pittsburgh area, for beneficiaries of the Pittsburgh healthcare system for whom such care is specifically authorized. So they must be coming out of the healthcare system and they need beds. So let's talk about what they need beds for. So it's saying they're looking to have a total of 10 contracted beds. So if you own a residential home where you give care to not just veterans, but anyone. You have nursing, and I have a lot of clients that are like that. They were doing that before they came to me, but that's why they wanted to do with the senior care contracts, is because they already have that set up, but they want to do, or maybe they have assisted living. They don't have a senior home, but they have assisted living, but they are authorized and licensed to do some of this healthcare. Okay, so let's go here. So the VA is looking for the 10 beds, and they're looking for a vendor in the area. Now, why do they say that? Now, you might say, well, I'm not in that area, but I'm interested in this. It means you would have to get a facility, a house, a home in that area with 10 beds. Okay. They want you to be located within the area for recovery goals, which must be located within 30 miles of drive time. So if you're looking at this, this is a sources thoughts. Again, just the beginning of the process. The next part of the process is pre-solicitation. If you are starting as early as this, you should be doing your work. You should be looking at, if you'd like to be in, let's say you're already in Pennsylvania, but you'd like to be in Pittsburgh, you'd like to do this, when you would start looking around. You start seeing if you could buy a house, lease a house, whatever it is you think you should do. Okay. This is what I mean about building your business model. Maybe you own houses already, but you're not into providing homeless services. So your model is going to be a little different. Okay. Now, and remember, this one requires a little bit more. So it says also, the contractor shall furnish each veteran authorized care under this contract to include the following: a supervised environment, which will be staffed on a 24-hour basis. Now it says staff. That doesn't mean it has to be a nurse or a doctor. We would look at what the requirements of staff means. Does that just mean a manager of the facility, or does that mean we have to have a nurse? They'll tell us more detail probably. Maybe not here. I mean, we'll see, but it may not be here. Everything may not be included in the sources sauce, but you need to get an idea so you can build the business model of what you would need. This is why you need to look at that cover page. They put a lot of stuff on that cover page, probably a lot of things that are in here. And that's where you can decide, do I want to do all this? No, I just want to provide bids. I can't do all this other stuff yet. So that's why I call that, using the hot list I had a hot list that I created for Jessica on the service side, because she would ask me, how do you pick out those contracts so fast? You would use that list to make sure you're looking for specific things so you can say yes or no quickly. You have to get used to that if you want to win on the service side, whether it's this or something else. Okay, so you need a bed for each veteran. That's obvious. You need laundry facilities or services. Now, some people might say, well, I mean, does the laundry facility have to be inside? Because it might be a small house. Does it have to be inside the house? Well, maybe not. You might be able to provide an outside service because maybe you don't want to hire someone inside. The money is going to be yours, meaning they're going to pay you. You might be able to decide how you want your laundry services handled. The next thing is, even though they're saying they want them to do their own laundry, okay, yes, they want them to do it in this case, and maybe they want them to do it in this case for a reason. Okay, so it looks like this one you may not have an option, but there are a lot of them that want you to have laundry services. This is not unusual. A lot of these 10-bed or 5-bed or 20 beds, when it's just transitional housing, they do want you to have some form of laundry services. But in this case, you can't do what I'm saying. You have to actually let them be able to do it, which is probably part of their rehabilitation. We don't know. You would learn more as you go. But therapeutic and rehabilitative services determined to be needed by individual veteran patients, meaning each one of them may have different things that they need, which could be a lot. I mean, 10 people is not a lot, but it sounds like a lot if all of them have different situations. That means, again, this might not be the contract for you, or you might be in the perfect position because you own an assisted living home, and this would be perfect for you to just go buy another one or to buy this one because you already have a plan for it. Okay. Medications, well, instruction, I need to go back to number one, instruction and assistance with health and personal hygiene. Okay, so if this is a requirement, then you might need some CNA type people around there, certified nursing assistants. That might be the type of person that you need to help do things like that. Medications, number two, medications are held by the vendor or held by the veteran in a locked box. Now, I do have to tell you that one thing that, because I have a drug license to sell drugs, I would think that you may, for this situation, maybe because it's under 10 people, you may not have to. If you're going to ask questions now and between the pre-solicitation time would be the best time to start asking questions. Now, some of them will say, we're not taking questions at this time. But as soon as they say, we're taking questions on this date, from this time to this time, or from this day to this day, that's when you want to ask these questions, because the question I would ask is, do I need a license for this? They might tell you, I don't know. You need to ask your city or your state. You might need a license for this. Even if you're not doing like I do, storing, warehousing, distributing. I can buy pharmaceuticals and sell pharmaceuticals to the government. So I might have a different level license than you may need. But if you're not ready for that, then again, this would not be for you. But if you are an assisted living home or you're a nurse and you have these types of facilities already, you probably already have authorization to do this. Okay. Number three, supportive social services in collaboration with case managers, VA, or other community contract resources. So they just want you to provide activities for them. So as you can see, this is one of the top of the line type situations, even though, like I said, it even fooled me because usually when I see 10 beds, that's all I'm thinking about is 10 beds and some food. That's usually all they ask for. But this is more detailed because these people are coming directly from the hospital. Okay, so this is a lot more work. When we talk about teams, you're talking about a lot more resources. We're not talking 3 other partners that you could work with. You're probably talking about 5 or 6, depending on the situation. So it's a little more complicated. Number 4, individual professional guidance, including counseling on self-care skills, adaptive skills. Remember, I talked about training and education, development. That's this. You would need to have someone that does that. Now, my thinking is, this is what me and my team do. We look at the staff that we need for not just our manufacturing, but also warehousing. And we say, okay, this person could do this and this. So in our case, we might need a warehousing person that is inbound and outbound of taking in the products to go on the, on the shelves. But we might say, well, this person could also be one of the certified forklift people. You could do the same thing with this. You could say, well, we could have a CNA because CNAs do a lot of things and they don't make a whole lot of money, which is very insulting. I don't like how CNAs don't make as much as they should. I mean, you could pay them a little bit more, and that's the point. You could pay them a little bit more and allow them a little more responsibility. So say you have CNAs that are there overnight, maybe you could teach them all of these skill sets. You need to learn this program on self-care. It's about thinking about managing processes and who does what. And that way you don't have to bring in other people that's what they specialize in. Nurses and CNAs, they know things like this anyway. They deal with this stuff in the hospitals. So it wouldn't be unusual for you to expect them to do these things. What else? Number 5, assistance in learning and development. I said that. A learning and development of responsible living patterns. I just said that, but these are more social learning and development, training and education. They're more on development, I would say, because maybe these people have been not functioning. So you'd have to think about, what types of staff would you need for that? And also, all of these things, quite frankly, allow you to charge a lot more. A lot more. Okay. So, because these are all services that mean you have to have staff to do these things, but you want to be efficient so your profit margins can be good. Support for an alcohol abuse, drug-free lifestyle. So what does that mean? That just means you could have a person that comes in or someone on the team that trains and talks about drug and alcohol and how it should be used. And, and you also, to me, from my perspective, I would think you'd have to take assessment of the people that have that in their history. Because this to me is very broad. It's a little bit open. But you would have professionals that do that. These people, I know people that do things like this. They don't charge a lot of money, but you could have them come in and give you a program that's already created, things like that. Okay. Assistance in learning and internalizing knowledge of illness recovery process. I think this is asking a whole lot, quite frankly, but you would need to map out if you were not afraid or to start here at this level, it doesn't bother you to start at this level, that's fine. All I would tell you to do is you need to map out what it would cost for you to have these services and who would provide these services, because you're not going to be able to do all these things. But like I said, the CNA role could do some of these things. That would also be, unless they say it has to be a nurse 24/7, you probably will have to have a doctor also that you contract with that's not there all of the time, but they are just an overseer, which is not very expensive either. Sometimes some of these doctors, that's all they do is they sign off on some of the facilities. They might have you work with them on how they handle things like that. And that wouldn't be necessarily for the government's protection as much as it is for your protection. Liability insurance would also be included in here, but you get that with your house, but you need a little bit more because you're taking care of people. If the government says you need $1 million, you might want to get about 3 million just to make sure that you are covered in case something happens. Not that you do something, but someone else does something. It's a lot of responsibility, but you could start with what the government says you need to have and then, increase it as you go. The more properties you have, of course, the more liability. The other thing that I want to tell you guys too is, no one has ever told me this, but this is how you do houses when you own properties. You put them in separate LLCs, meaning you could have a holding company where all of your properties belong to, and maybe put, if you won awards for, you wanted a lot of, let's say you really like this business and you wanted to do more than one, you should put each one of them in a separate LLC and have it reporting to your holding company. The reason being is because And I didn't even know this until I took some real estate. I took real estate because I knew I would be buying property. But then we had a guy come in and talk to us about setting up trust for your family, for your businesses, for all of your property, things like that. And I always thought that we should have just the holding company and have all of the properties underneath. And you do have the properties underneath, but they're all separate companies. Because and when I thought about it, I thought that makes a lot of sense. What if something happens with one property and someone tries to sue you? You're protected with just that one property. If they think and know that you have other things. And this almost happened to me and my husband. People, assume we were very young. He had a horrible car accident and people knew we owned businesses. We were very young and they tried to take advantage of the fact that they knew that we owned other things. And thank goodness we had an umbrella policy. We had things structured in a way where, like, our company was a complete separate entity. It was a corporation. So but I didn't know that when we set it up. We were just very fortunate. But our automobile insurance took care of everything. They gave us a lawyer. So a lot of things we didn't have to do, but we were covered in case those other things happened and they tried to sue us. Because when people have an accident with you, whether, until it's proven it's your fault or their fault, they were trying to say it was my husband's fault. Immediately, the lawyer starts looking up what you have. And they just thought we were very well to do. I mean, we were just building. We were just starting to build. And thank God, by accident, we had everything set up properly. So you want to separate, if you do more than one of these, you want to separate them into different LLCs. Okay. All right. So now look at this. Responses to this RFI include, so this is you. This is what you have to do. You have to include, actually, this is a very simple sources SOTs, but we're going to go through the whole thing. We're almost done. But they want you to have like a page, just a page with and your company name. It could be, doesn't have to be exactly like this, but when they ask me to do something in a certain order, I just do it in the order they ask. But this is one of those pages you're always going to use over and over and over again. Remember I said a template? You're going to create a template with your company name, the company address, and it needs to be your SAM information. Your phone number, if you want to use a personal phone number, that's fine. Just make sure you always answer your personal number in a professional manner, just in case. Point of contact email, if that's you as the CEO or the owner of the company, make sure that you are accessible. If you're not always accessible, put a second point of contact, even though they didn't ask you. Your UEI number, your cage code, the size of your business. And they usually want to know if you are woman-owned, veteran-owned, because I told you, that's what the set-asides are about. So you're going to put that as well. Okay. And then you're also going to put the fact that, now, if you don't have this NACE code in there, you can always put it in there later. Okay. Make sure you put it in there, but you need to put in the NACE code that they're using, even if it's wrong. This one is not wrong, but you need to use it. Now look at this. This says standard size 12 million. So that means that for this NACE code, every NACE code has a dollar amount. I don't know if you guys realize that. If you go over this NACE code, so this is good because what they're looking for is a smaller business. But you could be considered, a large business in this entity by being maybe $20 million, but that's not large. It's because if you're using this code right here, this is the size standard that they want. This is probably the small business level, which is what they want. What they're saying is your company cannot have generated more than $12 million. Even when you start growing, some people might think, well, I'm not even there yet. And no, that doesn't matter if you're not there yet, but you need to think about this. What if you want to have multiples of these? That's when it's going to affect you. So 12 million is that number that is attached to this NACE code for this particular opportunity level. Then they want you to answer these questions, and you need to take a separate document, separate from all of this other information that they want, take a separate document. And what I do is I always copy the questions just as they are and put them on my sheet. Why do I do that? I do that because I don't want people to be confused when they read my information. I want them to know I answered every question. Okay. So I would copy these 9 questions. And then I would do like this. I might this is what I usually do. I might put answer, here, and then I answer the question. And sometimes I do it like maybe in a blue or something like that. And I do that for each one of these. That's what I would do for each one of these. So when you get done with this, you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 pages. They're all going to be together with a cover letter. I shouldn't say cover letter, but a cover sheet. You could do a cover letter if you wanted to. That's up to you, just telling who you are as a company. But most importantly, you could also add your capability statement, like Emily was asking. You could just add that if you want to. But you need to answer each one of these questions, make it very neat and organized, because how you present your package, it does matter. You may think, well, let me just get this done real quick. Never throw something together. And even if you have to do it quickly, I'd rather you be late in submitting a source of SOTs than try to make a date. Because most of the time they will accept it anyway. They're just happy that people are responding. So you answer these questions. Now let's go through these questions. Most of them are basic, but you tell, whether or not you are a woman, minority. So if I'm a woman-owned business, I would say I'm a woman-owned. You can even say a minority woman-owned business if you are a minority. And you can't call yourself a WOSB unless you have SBA certification. I know a lot of people don't understand the difference, but there is a difference. You cannot say you are SBA certified. You don't realize that's what it is. But when people call themselves with federal government a WOSB, that's saying you are SBA certified. You can be a woman-owned business and you don't have to be certified as an SBA through SBA. It's a little bit different, meaning, you are not going to have that certification designation. So you can't take it, they can't take advantage of that, but you can get it later. When we look in your SAM right now, if you are a woman-owned business, it's going to show that you're a woman. It's going to show that you are Asian or Black. It's going to show all those things. So they still kind of get credit for it, but they can't put it through the SBA. When they set aside for WOSBs, but you're only woman-owned and you don't have an SBA package in process. Now they allow you to be in process. You can't say that you're WOSB. You still just say, I am a woman-owned small business, but don't use the term WOSB because they are different. Even the contracting officers don't know that. They don't. They get it mixed up because they don't know the difference. They think when you say you're a woman-owned business, but then you tell them, but I'm not certified. Then they say, oh, okay. That's why now the government is allowing the contracting officers to award us, even though. So if you want to have them do a set aside for you, first of all, you need to make sure that this code right here is in the SBA NACE code listing. All you got to do is go to the SBA.gov and look it up. But you don't have to have this as a certified business. Just let them know that you are woman-owned. You are a woman, minority, small business owned. So, I hope you guys understand what I'm saying, but the codes have to match, number one, to the SBA NACE code list for women, number one. But you can let them know you're working on your SBA certification to become a WOSB. I would say that right here if that's what you want to do, and then I would get that process started. And because we have such low numbers with women winning federal contracts, that's probably why if somebody is saying, well, I'm working on it. You have to be able to demonstrate that you've submitted your package and that you're working on it, because the SBA is taking I hope it's improved, but it was taking about a year for some people to get their SBA certification. So, okay. Now, this NAES code, you need to answer that you are considered a small business under this code, because when you put it in there, as long as you don't make over $12 million under this code, which you guys probably will not be in that category because you're just starting to think about this. You could say yes. So you go back into your SAM, put in this code right here, as we were just discussing. And that's why I want you to gather all the codes around this veterans program or around homelessness or around transitional housing. Get all your codes together before you go into SAM. But you could go ahead and say that you are not, that you are considered small under this code. You could answer that. And then what else is next? Then if you intend to subcontract any work on this process, in this contract, what portion of the total cost will be self-performed? So let me just tell you guys this. You know why they're asking this now? I mean, it's always been like this, but they're asking because people are out there talking about doing this middleman thing. This middleman thing is dangerous, and it is going to get a lot of people in trouble. Don't talk like that. That's why they're starting to ask this. They never used to ask this before. Now they want to know, they might ask you what percentage, but you have to be 51% to be the prime of this. That means your management portion, all this leadership stuff that I'm talking to you about, that's 51%. You have to make more than everybody that's doing the work. That's why they're asking this. And now they're even asking, they're asking what portion of the total cost. You could just say, 49 or 48%. There's nothing wrong with that. There's never been anything wrong with it. The problem is they're getting a hold of these people talking about this middleman stuff. It's the stupidest thing I have ever heard of. Because how are you a middleman, but you own the contract? If you're the prime, you're not in the middle. You own the contract. People work for you. There's no such thing. And then people don't even get the concept of you're managing the contract. You cannot, if that person makes a mistake, you have to deal with that person because the contracting officer is going to deal with you or one of your employees. So that's why it upsets me so bad, because I know that people are probably getting in trouble for this. It's not true. I have had people make a lot of things for me. I wasn't considered no middleman. I was considered the prime. And guess who they called when that paint was all messed up? Michelle. The contracting officer said to me, Michelle, they delivered the paint, but they're not accepting it. Why? I'm in charge. It's my contract, not the manufacturer who used cheap pallets. Not him, me. So there's no such thing as a middleman. The middleman would be the people that, maybe the concept, I don't know. Maybe the concept is, well, you're using a middleman. It's still stupid. It's still stupid because they're not really in the middle. They're performing. They are contractors. They're doing the work. How are they in the middle? There is no middle. It's me and them. We got to get the work done and I'm responsible. That's why I think it's ridiculous. And this is big business with federal contracting. I don't care if you're just doing products. There's no such thing, and it's very dangerous. So you guys get the point, but you know what I mean. You hear all this discussion, it's fake, and it's going to get people put in jail over nothing. It's just stupid. So don't say that, just tell them. And even if you don't know the numbers, just say 45% to 48% or something like that. Because really, that's what it's going to be. As long as you are doing 51% of the work as a small business, then you're covered. Now, with larger companies, they have a whole nother situation. They use middle people all the time. A lot of them don't do any of the work, but now they have to. And it's always been like this too for them. They have to give a project plan. See, if we're under, 40 million, and I use 40 million as the highest level, or manufacturing 700 million, as long as we are considered small businesses in certain categories, we were not questioned. Now we're being questioned. It used to be a casual conversation where they would say, well, you have to do 51% or you have to be 51%. And I would tell you guys what part of that is considered your 51%. These people cannot make more than you. But now in a manufacturing situation, I would have been able to explain that because I wasn't the manufacturer. But that's a completely different situation. In a service situation, they want to make sure that you're involved. They want to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. They want to make sure that nobody's telling you, you just, let us use your name and your information and we'll do everything else. Now, that's a middleman situation. You have the subcontractors out here doing all of the things that need to be done. You have yourself in the middle because there's a big guy just trying to convince you to use your certifications as a veteran, as a woman, as a minority, as a small business, even just a regular small business. That's not how things are supposed to work. There is nobody supposed to be in the middle. So when you do that, when you answer, just understand when you do this, and you own the house. So the house is yours. There are a lot of things you could put under your name. You got to manage the household. You got to manage the people. All of that could add up to 51% or more. So that's how you do that. Okay. You just need to be able to justify what your part is. But this whole thing of going to hire a team of people and you have nothing to do with it except you collect the check, that is illegal. That's why they're asking now because of COVID, all these people doing that stuff during COVID. The reason they're so hard on us and SAM, the reason now that DLA is, looking at everything we do until we get in the door. That whole letter thing that they present to us. Okay, we can see you're in SAM. Supposedly you're all these things. How can you help us over here in DLA? And should you even be over here? Can we trust you? We have that now because of all of these people out here listening to the wrong information. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, does your company have a GSA or FSS? The answer for most of you, or NAC, the answer for most of you is no. And then if you have the FSS, okay, you don't. If you don't, then this doesn't apply to you. Most of you don't. Number 6, general pricing of your solution is encouraged. Pricing will be used for the purpose of market research only. It will not be used to evaluate any type of award. I'm going to tell you something else. That's new. They're starting to do that a lot on the staffing side because they had all of these big companies gouging, and some of the small ones too. People were making a fortune during COVID on staffing. They are tired of being taken advantage of, and now they see it. A lot of things they don't understand how they work, but we teach them how it's working so you have this one company over here by them looking at 2 different examples. You have this one company over here, let's say it's a large entity, and for that $2 million contract that we just looked at, they charged $5 million. Then they have another company, maybe 2 other companies that submitted, and they're both around 1.9 million and maybe 2.5 million. They know now that this large company is gouging them, but maybe they used that company before. That's why now they're asking, okay, so what kind of pricing are you looking at? They never used to ask that. But you know what? I like it because I go figure it out and I tell them. It could be between this price and this price, because sometimes you could actually win a contract as a sole source because nobody else is responding from something like this. So do your homework. That's why you need to know, what are the previous awards in this state look like for transitional housing? And sometimes it is guesswork. It is. But, what you need to say to yourself is, this is how, I tell people, when you don't know what to charge totally and you just want to get in the door, you really like this business, don't sell yourself short, but don't be greedy either. Tell yourself, I want to make a couple $100,000 a year or $100,000 a year, or pay myself a salary a year off of, this is a nice size contract. I could maybe pay myself $100,000 or, $200,000, but that's a lot if you have to do a lot of these things here. That's why you want to start, if you can, if you have no experience, with something that only they just need beds and food. Those are easier. You can make a lot more money that way. When you have to start bringing in all of these people as partners, it's not bad, but you probably should graduate to that if you're not already managing housing. Some of you own properties already. I have quite a few clients that do, but they want to get into this too. But maybe they haven't done this part of it because they don't have to. So you have to ask yourself, where do I want to start? Okay, so what else? Let me see. General pricing. We talked about that. That's why I wanted you to learn a little bit more about the award pricing. If you could find the original contract to some of these that we've looked at, you found the award, like that one we saw, all you have to do is copy the name of that award, click on the inactive, and then more than likely, everything will come up that's related to that contract, including the solicitation. And then you can look at the original solicitation and then look at the pricing. Because they may be asking for different sources, meaning, or I should say different services, it may be hard to figure out what was charged for what, but you got a starting point. You have a starting point. Contracts this size in this state, in this location, for this type of service, all inclusive, I shouldn't go over $2 million. So if I can make this happen for $2 million, including my profit, I would be good. That's how you need to look at things. That's how sometimes I figure out what's happening on 5-year contracts. So now to me, that one contract, I mean, $2 million is not a lot of money for 5 years. It's just not. But your goal is not to live off of one contract. Your goal is to build a very solid, growing business with multiple contracts and multiple people doing the work for you at certain levels and you leading the company. That's the goal. Okay. Number 7. Please, now they're saying, let me back up to number 6. General pricing of your solicitation is encouraged. What they're telling you is you don't have to submit it. You can if you want to. If you have it, fine. But in this one, that could take a lot of time. So they're saying you don't have to submit it. But I would say, I would just say that, we would like to submit it, but we needed to do a little bit more research. We did not have time. I would say something like that. I wouldn't just ignore the question. Okay. Number 7, please submit your capabilities regarding the salient characteristics detailed above to establish capabilities for planning purposes. So this is kind of a big one. I feel like you need to answer something to each one of the, I've done this before with some of my senior home business proteges. So what they're saying is they want you to kind of answer each one of these questions. They don't have to be a lot of detail, but you might say, we have the ability, as an example. Number 1, they want you to have someone there for 24 hours. You might just want to address that. We could have a staff in place, or we have the ability to have a staff or staffing in place for 24 hours a day, rotating staff or something like that. Keep it short and simple so you're not adding too much to make them ask too many questions. Okay, because they might come back and ask you questions. They do that too. I've also seen it's happened to me where they quickly come back if they like what your sources sauce look like. And I mean, sometimes they could come back so fast that you're like, didn't they just get that last week? And they're asking you questions, which is a good thing because now the conversation is starting. Doesn't mean they're not still going to put out the solicitation, but this is how those things could work. They might say, or you might say, we can provide a bed for 10 veterans. Just keep it short and simple and to the point with things like this. You would say the same things for all of the rest of these areas. Even though they're not questions, they want to know that you can do it. Now, what they really want more of is for you to tell them how you would do it. You're not going to tell them that. You don't need to tell them all that because they should ask that if that's what they want to know. They will ask that in the solicitation, but I wouldn't tell them that because you might tell them some of that and they may put it in the solicitation. Now everybody knows about it. You want to keep things that you know how to do or things that you're going to do to yourself until it's time for your solicitation. Because contracting officers, a lot of times they don't know how to do these things. So we help them do their job. And so they take information from us and so I do tell them enough to help them to understand we can do it. Now, am I going to tell them all of our secrets of how we would do it? No, because you're just going to tell somebody else because they don't know how it's supposed to work. I'll give you an example. One of the warehousing opportunities that's coming up, I really want it. I really want it. And uh, they don't know how to structure it though. So they're asking us, well, Michelle, I mean, do you think we're going to be able to find domestic suppliers for this, for the warehousing? And I tell them, you can find it. It's just, do you think it's going to be more expensive? Yeah, it is if you want a domestic source. So, I mean, this conversation is me talking to them in person directly, but I will educate them to a limit. My COO always says, don't tell them too much. And I'll tell her, I know, I'm not going to tell them everything. She's like, how come they don't know this stuff anyway? I keep having to explain to her. There are just a lot of things they don't know. That's why you always have to look like the expert. They don't need to know that this is your first time doing this. You don't have to talk like that because in the past, one of the things that has hurt small businesses, all small businesses, is they used to think, when I say they, the contracting officers used to think small was small. Small business and government can go from $0 all the way up to $700 million in revenue, I'm talking. So they don't understand stuff like that. Even though they write these documents, it don't mean they understand everything they're writing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So never talk like, well, we kind of sort of, no, this is what we're doing. Always show confidence in your writing. And then what's next? But I would include the capability statement. I think I said that. Please review the salient characteristics. I just discussed that. So that's the last thing. Number 9, you already gave them above on your list your UIE number. You could just put your UIE number right here again. They do that. Sometimes they repeat themselves. But you would need to return this to these 2 people right here. And I would make sure that I have the email ready because sometimes we're running behind and this used to happen to me. I would have to create an email. I would keep the email very short and to the point. Thank you for the opportunity. Please find attached. And you put the source's SOTS number or the name or both, and then you submit it. Okay. And that's basically it. Now, this is sources SOTS because I really couldn't find any recent solicitations that were not too complicated. Some of the solicitations I looked at, but I would go through that. You know, if you guys decided that you wanted to do this, I am scheduling a training for the end of this month. You guys will get a follow-up email. You will get this recording. You'll have some time to think about it, and you will have all of the details in the training. But I see I have a couple of questions. Let me answer these questions. You guys have been really good. You asked some really good questions. How do you look up contracts in different cities and states like Michigan? Very good question. I'll show you before we go. And then Nikki says, hi, does it matter if you're not a part of the certified groups? No, Nikki, I know you came in a little bit later. We answered that before. No, it doesn't matter. But you are, I should say this to all of you guys. Unless you're over $40 million, and I use that as a general number because construction is up to 40 million, but you see in this opportunity, they're saying 12 million for this particular area. All small businesses, if you are classified as a small business in specific areas or any areas, you are considered a small business. Small business is a certification in a sense. It's a set-aside group. We're all, so that's why when you see opportunities that say small business, they set it aside only for small business. So you are part of a certified group. You just don't have to go through a specific process for it. You're already considered small. Small business status is a powerful status because the problem is a lot of times with things like this, when they involve a lot of bigger 5-year contracts, the reason they don't have veterans set aside able to do this is because small businesses in general are not responding either. Not only are women not responding as certified categories or as a certified group, not only are minorities not responding or disadvantages nobody's responding. And the large companies don't respond because they feel like they don't have to. They know how to bid. If they like this, they'll just follow it until it becomes a solicitation and then they'll bid on it. But this one, they probably can't bid on because they're trying to keep it small business. That's why they ask us in sources sought, are you a small business? They would rather give it to us. So no, you do not have to be a part of any specific small business group. And that's another myth. Everybody thinks they got to wait till their certifications come through. It doesn't matter if you have a certification or not. You still have to know how to win, no matter what industry you're in, because these certifications do not get you contracts. And to prove my point, this is why I was talking about the Labor Department, where Biden and Kamala had the Labor Department do this research on who's not winning, which small business groups are not winning contracts. That's why women and Black-owned companies are not winning, is because you guys hear out there, some of you know, because you're with me already, some of you know it's not true that you need a certification to win. What you need to do is win, learn how to win across the board so that you can have them set aside more for you. That's what your certification is for. You use your certification strategically. If you're already showing up, they can say, I see women all the time bidding on these solicitations for veterans. Then they will set aside for women. They could say, I see veterans, service disabled veterans bidding all the time on this. Then they can set aside. They can't do it right now because they don't see us. That's how certifications work. So you don't have to have one. Most of my winners, they don't win on set asides. They don't. I'm not kidding. They win because I taught them how to win. Period. The end. And that's you too.